Our goal today is to present to you part of a story. It's just part of the story. The man that you'll learn about today would be considered ordinary by some standards. In my family, he's a legend. He was in his life a legend and continues in his death as a legend. Today we're going to read his diary that was kept while he was prisoner of war in Nazi Germany. Before we get to the diary, we will be presenting other details, articles, letters, and telegrams. Again, this is just part of the legend. My grandfather left a legacy to his family. It is with great honor that we bring you this presentation today. All of the presenters here today are all family members of one who most would consider a war hero. Here is his story. My name is Gabriel Cruise, and George Chappell was my grandfather. George Chappell was born in 1917 in Dixon, Tennessee. He grew up in a sleepy little town attending the local schools and the Methodist Church. Life could have been idyllic except for the fact that his father, Taylor, was stricken with rheumatoid arthritis while still a young man and was unable to continue his job as a brakeman for the railroad. During those days, there was no treatment for the disease, and Taylor's body continued to draw and stiffen until completely crippled. George and his older brother worked different jobs to help with the family finances. Even while he did that, he was able to play football for the high school and train and take part in the state Golden Gloves. George married a local young lady, Velma Gunn, and by 1943, they had two daughters, Beverly and Nancy. World War II became a reality for our country and George. Thinking he was too old for the armed services, he moved his family to Detroit, Michigan to work in a factory for the war effort. While there, to his surprise, he received a letter informing him that he'd been drafted at the age of 27 years old. While George traveled to Florida to begin his basic training, his family returned to Dixon, Tennessee, to live with his parents and other family members for the duration of the war. As the war raged, communities and families drew close together to deal with daily hardships of an unknown future.
My name is Hannah Cruise, and George Chappell was my great-grandfather. Citizens during World War II were very much a part of the war effort. Women, many for the first time, went to work doing the jobs that men had vacated when they became soldiers, as well as fill the jobs in the plants, building planes, ships, and all the items needed to fight a war. Families moved in together to share meals, to help with childcare, and generally to save money. Many items became rationed by the government, such as gasoline, sugar, meat, butter, and clothing, and shoes, to name a few. But there were many more. Books of rationing stamps were issued to each person, including children. The reasoning behind such a drastic measure was to ensure that there was enough, not only for the men overseas fighting, but that shortages didn't happen in this country. Rationing affected everyone, even the wealthy. My grandmother told me a story of one such rationing. She was 6 years old and starting the first grade in a matter of days. Her last ration stamp had been spent for school shoes, a pair of saddle Oxfords. That afternoon, wearing her new shoes, she accompanied two older girls to a nearby creek. The creek was very swift due to recent rains, but the girls decided to wade, removing their shoes, tying them together to carry over their shoulders. My grandmother, of course, followed suit. The rapidly moving waters caused her to fall, dropping her new shoes. The girls all watched as the shoes were carried out of sight. Fearing swift repercussions, she walked home to tell her mother the bad news. The shoes were looked for and never found. The dreaded repercussions ended up being a very sad and disappointed mother. In my grandmother's words, a spanking would have been easier to bear. However, my grandmother didn't have to wear outgrown shoes to school. One of her grandfathers gave her his last ration stamp, and a new pair of shoes were purchased in time for school. One way that individuals and communities supplemented their limited ability to purchase food items was by planting a victory garden, often planted, tended, and harvested by many families. My grandmother's neighborhood had just such a garden. One of the ways that some of the women whose husbands were away at war dealt with gasoline rationing was to pack a car full of women and children, share their ration stamps, and head to a swimming hole or some other place that was too far to walk. Mostly, though, they walked. Friday nights were a time for the army wives to get together to share a meal, which was usually fish, since that was never rationed. The children played together, while the mothers took advantage of the opportunity to talk and share their worries and concerns. This homefront description was for the small town of Dixon, Tennessee. Larger cities and different areas would probably have a different story to share.
My name is Patrick Cruise. George Chappell was my great-grandfather. Basic training began at Camp Blanding in Starkey, Florida, April 10, 1944 until August 5, 1944. My great-grandfather's special training was in anti-tank. From there, his squad was sent to Camp Atterbury in Indiana, where they became a part of the Golden Lions of the 106th. Friendships that began during this time continued as they found themselves crossing an ocean, marching into an alien landscape to fight a war far from home, and finally crowded together into a prisoner of war camp in a foreign country.
My name is Gabriel Cruise. George Chappell was my great-grandfather. Western Union Telegram, June 7th, 1944, 7:06 a.m. Mrs. George Chappell, 437 Center Avenue, Dixon, Tennessee. Dearest Velma, if you possibly can get ready, leave Friday in time to arrive Saturday, the 10th, by 12 o'clock. I have to work the next 3 Saturdays. Get your ticket to Starkey and get a taxi to camp. Tell driver you want to go to the day room area. I'll meet you there by 11:30 a.m. and we will go to St. Augustine for the weekend. I know you won't have much time to get ready, but come if you can and plan to stay until Monday or Tuesday. Wire back if you are. Pick up pass at Westgate. Love, George.
I'm Beverly Chappell Cruise, and George Chappell was my dad. While my dad was undergoing basic training near St. Augustine, Florida in the spring of 1944, my mom had a chance to visit for a weekend. I was 5 years old and extremely excited to go with her. Our only choice for transportation was to ride a Greyhound bus. When we had to change buses in Georgia, crowds of soldiers filled the terminal. It was announced that only soldiers or soldiers with their families would be allowed to board the buses. My young mother, with her 5-year-old in tow, must have looked desperate. Suddenly, a uniformed soldier walked up and asked if her husband was with her. She answered no, that we were on our way to see him. He reached down, picked me up, and said, come on, I'm traveling alone. I'll get you on the bus. Thanks to the thoughtfulness of this young soldier, we were able to make it to our destination on time and spend some much-needed time with my daddy.
Sunday night, September 24th, 1944. Darling Velma, Beverly, and Nancy, this year has been a blue old Sunday for me, and I know it has been the same for you. I got your letter today that you wrote Friday night, and Beverly's letter. Honey, it was an awful sweet letter. After we know for sure, honey, that I can't see you before I leave, why don't you go down to your mother's and stay a while before real cold weather sets in? Don't go until after this week, though, because something might turn up. Please, darling, for my sake and the children's, keep your chin up and don't cry and worry so much. I know it's hard. Sometimes I can't keep from crying myself at night after I've gone to bed and can be alone with my thoughts of you and the children. But we've got to face this with our heads high, honey, and when it is all over, we will look back and laugh at the fears and heartaches we had. Darling, when I leave, I want to tell you where I am, but the censors can detect codes, so remember what I'm fixing to tell you. If I go to England, I'll ask you how my bird dog is. If I land in France, I'll ask how my squirrel dog is. If I go the other way, and darling, I don't think we will, but if we do, I'll tell you to take good care of my bird dog. If I go anywhere else, like Panama, I'll let you know by asking about neighbors that you know I wouldn't ask about. Your mail to me, honey, won't be censored, so if you want to have me tell you something, figure out what you want me to say. It won't be long now, darling, until I will be back to you. So let's be brave about everything. I promise you, Velma, and I'm telling you the truth, I don't think we're going to combat. Our officers don't think so either. We will probably be the Army of Occupation. So if and when I leave, honey, let's just take it as it comes, and I won't talk about it anymore tonight. Honey, your old man is younger than he thought. I played a game of football yesterday. The first platoon played the second, and we won 12-0. I thought I was too old for such games, but I guess I'm not as old as I thought. Ha! I'm awful sore, but a lot of the boys are hopping around today. Olson played, and Phil was referee. Well, darling Velma, I will close and get a good night's sleep. Please, honey, keep writing long letters like you have been. Kiss the children for me and tell them that I love them. And I love you, my darling wife, more than anything in the world. George.
In late September 1944, Private George Chappell boarded the Queen Elizabeth, a luxury ocean liner mustered into service to transport troops to Europe. He spent a short time in England and France before he found himself in the cold, snowy mountains of Belgium. Unknown to these untried soldiers, they were about to face one of the major battles of World War II.
Miss Beverly K. Chappell, 437 Center Avenue, Dixon, Tennessee. Private First Class George M. Chappell, Postmaster, New York, New York. Dearest Beverly K. and Nancy Sue, how are my buddies today? I bet you're all right, and I know you're being good girls. And Beverly, I bet you are helping Mother all you can and taking care of little sister. I'm glad you're going to Sunday school every Sunday. Honey, I saw something over here that Daddy's going to buy you the first thing when I get home. It was a little bicycle, just the right size for you. You could really have fun with one like it. Well, sweetheart, Daddy has to quit riding and go to bed. Be good little girls. Remember, Daddy loves you an awful, awful lot. Good night, Daddy.
My name is Ronda Cruise. George Chappell was my grandfather. December 15th, 1944. Dearest George, no letter today. This makes the 4th day that I've gone without hearing from you. Maybe I will get one tomorrow. Honey, Nancy and Beverly have a bowl of Jell-O and are sitting in the middle of the floor eating it. Christine and Zena have gone home. We just had chili, Jell-O, and cake for supper, but it was good. Well, I guess I was just plain hungry, ha. I miss you so much, even more now than I did back in the summer. I guess one reason is because you're across. I had to quit writing and hold Beverly and Nancy a while. Bev was telling Nancy about how sweet you are, so I got them up in my lap and talked to them about you. I would tell them something you had done or said, and we would laugh. Beverly would tell something, Nancy would start jabbering, and she would laugh. She thought she was telling something too. She's sitting in my lap now, and I can hardly write. Beverly's getting ready to go to bed. We get to see the proofs of our pictures in the morning. Hope they're good. Your mama, dad, and Bobby have an appointment at 3 o'clock tomorrow to have their picture made. Billy wrote for them to send him one. They'll send you one too. Honey, I guess I'll quit and go to bed. You can't read this anyway, for Nancy won't sit still. Darling, we love you, your own. Velma, Bev, and Nancy. P.S. I missed you. This letter was returned stamped. Returned to sender. Missing in action.
The Battle of the Bulge. The 106th Division was spread pitifully thin along a 27-mile front of the Siegfried Line in the foggy dawn of December 16, 1944. The attack began at 5:50 a.m. with a tremendous artillery barrage against the line. The Germans turned their guns on the 422nd and 423rd Regiments and followed with infantry and tank assaults. By daybreak of December 17th, the Germans had thrown 2 divisions into that part of the front, swamping the 2 regiments. All the time until radio contact was lost, the 2 regiments continued to send back reports of the fighting. At 3:35 p.m. on December 18th, the radio sputtered that the regiments were in need of ammunition, food, and water. Parachuting and supplies was out of the question due to the dense fog. The last message came from the 422nd at 4 p.m. and the 423rd at 6 p.m. and were virtually identical. We are destroying our equipment. That was all. It was presumed that most of the 2 regiments were taken prisoner. These men of the 106th were caught up in one of the major battles of the war before they had done much more than night patrols. They may have been inexperienced, but they were prepared.
Western Union Telegram, January 11th, 1945, 8:19 a.m. Mrs. Velma Chappell, 437 Central Avenue, Dixon, Tennessee. The Secretary of War desires me to express his deep regret that your husband, Private First Class George M. Chappell, has been reported missing in action since the 21st of December in Germany. If further details or other information are received, you will be promptly notified. Dunlop Acting, the Adjutant General.
Missing in action. The night after the telegram arrived, telling the family that my grandfather was missing in action, family and friends gathered at the house on Center Avenue in Dixon, Tennessee. My grandmother wrote each of their names down on a piece of stationery. There were hugs and tears and reassuring words. The community grew even closer. My 5-year-old mother refused to go to bed. She pulled a chair up to the window that looked out onto the front porch because she was sure that her daddy was coming home that very night. Sometime in the wee hours, the disappointed child climbed into her bed. It would be nearly 3 months before the family would know that my grandfather was a prisoner of war and not killed in action. That knowledge would come in a letter from George himself. A telegram from the War Department would follow, but somewhat later.
January 3rd, 1945. This is a letter that was received on March 5th, 1945. My darling wife, I certainly hope that you have heard through the Red Cross long before now that I am all right. I won't be allowed to write very often, but you can write to me all you wish. Just wait for me, my darling, and don't worry because the Germans have treated us fine. Maybe it won't be so long before I will be back with you, my dearest ones. We were captured the 19th of December. I am well and wasn't injured. Phil and Olson are still with me. I got 2 letters from you the 18th of December, one from the 1st and the 3rd. Honey, send me a box with 2 pairs of socks, 2 suits of underwear, razor blades, shaving stick, toothbrush and powder, towel, soap, and fill the rest of the box with all the cigarettes and chocolate bars you can pack in it. Go to the Red Cross about the box. I hope I'm home before it gets here. Darling, kiss my dearest Beverly and Nancy for me. Tell Mama and Papa and Bob hello and all the rest and your folks. I pray every night to come back to you, darling Velma, and I know you will wait. I love you, George.
Western Union Telegram, April 6, 1945, 8:36 a.m. Mrs. Velma C. Chappell, 437 Center Avenue, Dixon, Tennessee. The Secretary of War desires me to inform you that your husband, PFC Corporal George M, is a prisoner of war of the German government, based on information received through Provost Marshal General. Further information will be received by Provost Marshal General J.A. Ulio, the Adjutant General. American Red Cross Telegram. Dear Miss Chappell, I'm the prisoner of war chairman, and I'm in the Red Cross office Thursday of each week. Any information or help that you desire, if you will come to the office on that day, I'll be glad to render every assistance possible. Other days of service will be rendered by office force. Mrs. E.C. Hagar, POW Chairman.
This is a letter my grandmother wrote to Phil's wife, even though they had never met. Dear Bunny, I just received a letter from George. He's a prisoner and Phil is with him. Also Olson. Hope you heard from Phil too. George said he was all right and that the Germans treat them fine. I went to the Red Cross and they looked the camp up. It was at Dresden. Of course, Dresden is no more. His camp is Stalag 4B. He asked for socks and underwear, razor blades, cigs and candy, towels and soap. I'm at the post office, so I'll close, hoping and praying our boys will be home soon. Sincerely, Velma Chappell. From an article in a Pennsylvania newspaper following Velma's letter to Bunny. On the birthday of her young soldier husband, PFC Philip Dwyer, whom she had mourned as missing in action, the news came to his wife, Dorothy Bunny Dyer, that he was safe and in a prison camp. The notification came from another young Army wife she had never seen, Mrs. George Chappell of Dixon, Tennessee, whose husband is in the same prison camp as Dwyer. The letter came by special delivery. Mrs. Chappell wrote that she received a letter from her husband saying that he and Dwyer, members of the 106th Infantry Division and buddies since they joined the Army, had been captured together on December 21st during the German breakthrough in Belgium, and they were in the same prison camp in Germany. Fearing Mrs. Dwyer might have had no news or bad news concerning her husband, she was hastening to reassure her of his safety.
And here's our copy of the diary. The first entry, December 17th, 1944. My darling wife and children, I have a strange feeling tonight that something unusual is going to happen, so I've decided to make a diary for the following days so you, my dearest, and the rest of my loved ones will know what happened. Last night, the 8mm shells were falling so close to us they were throwing dirt into our dugout. Phil was on guard. Both of us were praying. Today, Phil and I, with 10 other picked men, are going to be moved to a hill where an attack is expected to help defend it. December 18th, 1944. Well, nothing much happened yesterday on the hill. We were back a little after dark. This morning we have orders to move out and retake a town that was taken by the Germans last night. It is awful cold, snow about 6 inches deep, not much to eat for the past 2 days. December 19th, 1944. We attacked yesterday about the middle of the afternoon. Things didn't go so well, and we have retreated to a hill in the woods where we have dug in for the night. Phil and I dug a slit trench together and lay close to each other to try to keep warm. We nearly froze. We only have a sweater and a jacket. We didn't have anything to eat today except a K ration we had in our pocket. The Jerry's knocked out our supply truck. December 20th, 1944. Well, darling, yesterday was a day I will never forget. We moved in early in the morning and fought fiercely all day. I thought my number was up several times, but God was watching over me. By late afternoon, we were cut off from the rest of our outfit, and the enemy was on all sides of us. Men were being killed like flies. Our ammo was about gone, so our officers that were left decided to give up. Phil and I, with 2 more men and an officer, made a decision that was almost fatal for all of us, and 1 man did lose. We decided to slip back to our lines during the excitement of the surrender. They turned a burp gun on us, and we barely escaped, but ran into another bunch of Germans and had to give up. They marched us 10 miles back to the town they had taken. There was no place for us to sleep, so we stood up in a muddy field all night. We still haven't had anything to eat. December 21st, 1944. Yesterday was sure a tough day. They started us out at daylight and marched us about 35 miles. I sure didn't think some of the boys could make it, and at times I had doubts about myself, because by this time I'm awful weak from hunger. Last night we stood up all night again. Phil and Olson are still with me. December 22nd, 1944. Well, darling, I bring this up to date. This morning they gave us a package of hardtacks and a can of cheese to split between the 7 of us. They marched us to the railroad station and put us in boxcars, 60 men in each car. The cars had been used to haul cattle, and you can imagine how nasty the floors are. December 23rd, 1944. Still riding, nothing to eat today, awful crowded and cold at night. December 24th, 1944. We have been on a sidetrack all day. They let us out for about 10 minutes this morning. They gave us each a half a loaf of bread and a little butter to last 3 days. Christmas Eve, sweetheart. Oh God, how I wish I was home with my loved ones tonight. Phil and I are out of cigarettes. December 25th, 1944. A Christmas, darling, I will never forget. My thoughts are with all of you and the children at home. I can't keep the tears back. I can see everything y'all are doing today, and I'm praying to God that you haven't got the news yet that I'm missing. They didn't give us anything else to eat today, and just a little water. We are still on the sidetrack. December 26, 1944. Still on the sidetrack. Early tonight, darling, I thought surely we were all going to be killed. There was an air raid on the town where we are, and some of the bombs hit close to us. About 600 of the boys were killed. We were all praying out loud in the car I'm in, and God heard our prayers because not one of us were hurt. They gave us an English Red Cross box today to split between 6 of us for 3 days. December 27th, 1944. We moved out today, awfully hungry. December 28th, 1944. Moved all day today. Tonight we have stopped. I think we are where we are going. December 29th, 1944. Got off the train this afternoon. I would hate for you to see me, honey. I haven't shaved or had a bath in 30 days. We all look like tramps. They marched us to the prison camp, and after a lot of red tape, they gave us a hot shower. They took our money, and one German I'll kill if I ever see him at the right time because he took my wedding ring. They took us to our quarters. They were full of Royal Air Force boys who are treating us pretty nice. They gave each of us 5 cigs and are sharing their blankets with us. December 30th, 1944. We got a Red Cross box today between each 2 of us to last 10 days. The Germans give us 1 meal a day, most of the time turnip soup, sometimes with a few potatoes. December 31st, 1944. Every day is about the same, sweetheart. We get up at 6:30 for roll call. Then we can go back to bed if we want to. Phil and I usually do until a skimpy meal at midday because it's so cold. We have no fire in the building. Today they took all of the non-coms to another camp. We are expecting to have to go out and work any day. Next entry is January 5th through January 14th, 1945. Well, 40 of us left on the 13th for Legenfield to work in a concrete block factory. I've been separated from Phil and everyone else I knew. Tonight they gave us the best meal I've had in Germany, a thick potato soup. Next entry is January 14th through January 22nd, 1945. Well, honey, I've done some pretty hard work, but this is the hardest I've ever done. We work from 7 in the morning until 6 at night. I'm using a shovel in wet concrete. In the morning, we get 1/8 of a loaf of bread, a little piece of butter, and coffee, soup for dinner, and supper, which is not much more than plain water. Everyone is looking awful pale and thin. My neck is hurting for getting kicked around today for not working. They have taken me to the hospital. When the war is over, I'll get even with this guard. He speaks English well. January 27th through February 17th, he writes, well, honey, I spent 3 weeks in the hospital. I've been gold bricking some, although my neck does hurt. It has helped me being here. The food is better and you get Red Cross boxes. Tomorrow they are sending me back. February 17th through March 1st, 1945. When I got back from the hospital, I got a little easier job but less food. That guard has it in for several of us because we won't work hard enough. March 2nd, 1945. Something new, honey. Today they took 15 of us to a town called Truan. I don't know what kind of work we were going to do. We have a lot of cleaner place to stay than before, and also a new guard. March 3rd through March 10th, 1945. They put us to work in the woods digging stumps, 12 hours a day, no breakfast, half bowl of soup for dinner, an eighth of a loaf of bread for supper. Today I can't weigh more than 165 pounds. Yesterday, another boy and I tried to escape. 3 hours later, we were caught. I thought we would be punished, but the new guard is a pretty good Joe. He asked us not to try it again, that our buddies would be here soon. March 10th through March 20th, 1945. They've moved me into the factory where I'm running a circle saw. I don't work hard, and nearly every day I saw into a nail, and my saw has to be sharpened. Ha! I've ruined 3 motors already. Hope I don't get caught. Every day the planes come, and sometimes the bombs fall pretty close. They come every night too. Germany is torn all to pieces. We have found a place close to our laager where we can steal potatoes. The guard lets us steal them because he thinks the war is about over and he wants us to tell the Americans that he was good to us. March 20th through April 1st, 1945. Well, darling, I have not been working as hard on this job. We hear rumors every day that our forces are within 100 miles of here. I'm sure that is why we are being treated better. Nearly every day a German gives me some bread. I sometimes wonder if it is poison, but I'm so hungry I eat it anyway. April 2nd, 1945. The other 25 men that we left in the other town came here today. The place where they worked was torn up by the bombs. The old guard came with them. I may get a chance to get even yet. April 2nd through April 15th. Nothing unusual happened the last few days, honey, but today is all excitement. Our boys are getting closer. We can hear the guns. It can't be long before they will be here. Happy day. April 16th, 1945. The big guns are getting closer and closer. Today, the German army has been retreating by here all day. Once the pride of Germany, they are a sad, almost pitiful sight right now. Early tonight, they tried to march us back to Germany. 3 of us ran off and are spending the night in an old well, praying to God that the Yanks will be here by morning. The guard that had been so rough on us came looking for us, and we overpowered him and took his gun. We didn't kill him, honey, but we sure beat the hell out of him. We can hear rifle fire now. It can't be more than a few hours. And the final entry is April 17th, 1945. It says, well, darling, this is the day I've been waiting and praying for. This morning about 9 o'clock, our troops came marching into town. I was so happy I cried as I realized that I was going to see my darling wife and children again.
Western Union Telegram, May 5th, 1945. 8:12 a.m., Mrs. Velma C. Chappell, 437 Center Avenue, Dixon, Tennessee. The Secretary of War desires me to inform you that your husband, PFC Chappell George M., returned to military control April 17th, 1945. J.A. Ulio, the Adjutant General. Western Union Telegram, May 15th, 1945, 8:18 a.m., Mrs. Velma C. Chappell, 437 Center Avenue, Dixon, Tennessee. The Chief of Staff of the Army directs me to inform you that your husband, Private First Class George M. Chappell, is being returned to the United States within the near future and will be given an opportunity to communicate with you upon arrival. J.A. Ulio, the Adjutant General. Western Union Telegram, May 15th, 1945, 3:21 p.m., Mrs. George Chappell, 437 Center Avenue, Dixon, Tennessee. Dearest Velma, just arrived, feeling fine. See you in a few days. We'll call later. Love to all, George.
When my grandfather returned to the United States, he spent some time in the hospital recovering before he was able to come home on furlough. He was stationed at Camp Croft in South Carolina to finish his tour of duty. There he was promoted to corporal and assigned to the military police until his discharge, November 3rd, 1945. His battle scars were not readily visible when he returned. The neck injury he talked about in the diary, though improving over the years, continued to cause him pain for much of his life. He never wanted to talk about his time in the Army. My mom was a teenager when she found out that he had taken out a tank during the Battle of the Bulge, and an adult before she learned that he had been awarded a Bronze Star for it. He and his friend Phil, who is mentioned many times in the diary and letters, eventually lost touch. Years after both George and Phil had died, my mom, who had only recently added her maiden name to her profile on Facebook, received a message saying, "I hope you are the Beverly Chappell I am looking for." With that, the daughters of George and Phil, who had never met, became friends 70 years after the father's wartime experience forged their own friendship. Joan and Beverly, with their husbands, have met, exchanged pictures and information, and stay in touch through emails and Facebook. I believe that George and Phil would have been pleased. And my grandfather I like to call him a gentle giant. He was a big man, and he was a writer. And I would like to end this with his poem called One Brief Moment. For one brief moment, a mother's love was mine. For one brief moment, childhood days divine. For one brief moment, I suffered the horror of war. For one brief moment, the peace I was fighting for. The love of a wife, children's love. Time was swift and loose. Still I looked, searched and wondered just what was the truth. I climbed the mountain, I looked upon the sea. I held a rosebud in my hand while bending on my knee. The other hand was touched by God. I looked into eternity. The wonderful truth I was seeking was suddenly revealed to me. George M. Chappell. Thank you. If anyone... If anyone has any questions or anything, we're all up here, and we have some really neat stuff that we just talked about up here on the table. If anybody wants to come up and look. Thank you so much for turning out. Thank you so much. Yes, ma'am.
What was the sidetrack you kept saying? We're on the sidetrack.
They were on the rail. They were still in the boxcars of the railroad.
Just off on a side track, standing in those awful boxcars
Okay.
for days.
One time they said, "We'll let them out a little bit," so they just pulled to the side. It wasn't a sidetrack.
Do you know if these were the same boxcars that were used to transport Jews to the concentration camps?
We don't know it at all, except the fact that Granddaddy said in his, my grandfather never talked about it. I all through school, I used this diary to get extra credit. And the school children, whatever grade I was in, started in 6th through high school, I think, clap at the end of it, just like today, because it tells us such a story. So we can only really go by what he says in the story. And he says it was cattle cars, so that's all we've got to go by.
And that's what they,
Yes, he never talked about his experience in the Army ever, to his child, to his grandchildren. When we would go to him, he would just give us a copy of the diary and say, here you go. And, you know, I read it to my history class as a junior in high school. He couldn't talk about it. Like I said, he was a very gentle and peaceful and sweet man.
Do you remember that day when he came home?
Oh, I do. I remember
What do you remember about that day?
I remember that we stood the day he came home. He insisted on taking a taxi and coming to the house. And I remember we all, my grandparents, my mother, me, my baby sister, we all stood on the front porch and watched for him. And it was a joyous time.
How old were you then?
I was 5 when he went in and 6 when he came out. And I have very good memories of that time. Everything that was in this, I remember.
That Christmas you were old and you could remember too, and I'm sure it felt quite empty without him there.
I remember how sad everyone was. I remember the night that he was reported missing and how everybody came to the house. How we, I just now look back and I think they thought he was dead.
I think that was what was so special about my mama writing that letter to Bunny, because, you know, people stuck together. Yes. And she just was so afraid that Bunny she didn't get a letter from Phil. So she didn't know where he was. So Mama sending the letter was joyous for her, because she found out that he was not dead.
Yeah,
and
sure.
She wasn't mourning him.
And their daughter, Joan, sent me a copy of the letter. That's how I have it.
That's how you have it.
Isn't that awesome?
Do your family and Phil's family, do you still?
Well, we have met and we talk all the time. There's just been a few years, a couple of years that we have been in touch. And but we stay in touch. She was so supportive of this and so happy that I included her father, and I said, oh my gosh, he's part of the story.
That's right.
You know, pictures up here on the board where they met, and it's really cool that they did meet.
Just a side note, my grandfather was born in 1917, so today, or this year is a
100th anniversary. Wow. It was very interesting.
Okay.
So he was treated well by the
It would appear that way from what he said numerous times.
So he just gave the letter to...
Well, I wondered about that too, and I don't, somebody might have some information on how the letters.
The letter that he wrote came to the Red Cross.
How did he get it there?
The Red Cross was responsible for him, and they must have only let a few write letters. And they mailed it, but he wrote it on January the 3rd, and it wasn't received until March the 5th.
Wow. I think it's funny to think of rules of war, but there are rules. And one of the rules was that the Red Cross had access to the prisoners. And I think his treatment got better as time went on. Like the one guard said, you know, don't do that again, your guys will be here soon. So I think that as time went on, they knew they were coming, that the treatment did get better.
And keep in mind, and I know we were reading this, so y'all didn't have the luxury of getting to see everything, but the letter that I read that he wrote to her saying that he was prisoner of war and hoping that her connection with the Red Cross, that was written January 3rd. My grandmother received it March 5th. The Western Union telegram that Gabriel read after that, that says that he was prisoner of war, she didn't receive from the War Department until April 6th.
Oh.
So you're looking, she knew since March 5th, and she's not being told by Western Union until April 6th.
Did you tell about the picture being ripped?
Oh, I did not. My dad had pictures of my mother and my sister and me that he carried with him. They're up on the board. And my mother's, the guard that took the wedding ring, this wasn't in the diary, but he tore the picture in half of my mother. Gave it back to him. And so you can see where it's been repaired. You can see the tear across.
Did he ever get his ring back?
No.
We got it brought back.
He also received a Purple Heart for the injury that he downplays.
He does.
He downplays that in the...
And he was actually hit with a rifle butt
He was butted
on his neck, and he really,
He was hurt bad.
I remember the first few years he was back, he suffered a lot. It got a little better, but he always had that pain.
And he also received the Bronze Star, is that correct, for taking the tank
The
out?
Bronze Star for taking it.
Thank you so much.
He wrote it in his own hand.
Yes, he did. He had written this, but it was very hard to read. Plus, see, that's the flag he wrote back. That's the actual document.
Yeah, this is my scrapbook. It's where all the stuff was. I can show you the flag is very shaped.
Excellent.
As is
Oh my.
And I did not find this until after he died. It was in a box. Mother gave me the box, and she said, "These are some papers your daddy had. You might be interested." And there was, he had written it out for everybody to read, but I had never seen the original.
So that is what? What is that?
That's the original diary.
And this is the diary?
That's the
Yeah.
diary.
Can you flip through it a little bit?
Yeah. He had,
Yeah. How neat. How interesting. Yeah. Wow, that's neat. Let's see its condition it's in.
yeah.
Is that written in pencil?
Written in pencil.
Well, it's amazing it lasted.
And he had some interesting, he had addresses, I guess, that people, he even had one from a German.
Really? Yeah, well.
But this has his discharge and everything, a copy of the diary. He kept things. These are the real And this is, you can see the tear across my mother's picture there.
Oh.
That's the original picture. My sister, and this radio belonged to my grandfather, and that's what he listened every day to the broadcast about the war. That's all it was used for. And also Roosevelt's fireside chat, whatever he did. That's all. And I would sit there and listen like I knew what was happening.
Does it still work?
It does, but you can't pick up the stations.
It's neat.
We had a question about where's your dad?
And then, well, he worked in the job. But then when he went to Detroit, and so he went up there and he worked in, I'm not sure what factory it was, had something.
Okay.
And he was grandmother.
Yeah.
So we all went back to Tennessee, and us lived together, and our grandparents had a big house.
I was just mentioning my uncle was in the Panelists Hall. He was with the 106th.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
106th?
And he was, and same thing, when he came home from the war, he said nothing. He did not say anything. Then years later, they said Uncle Norman was in, just started talking one afternoon about it.
It was so big. I mean, that's what Patrick
Had a presence,
said.
huh?
He definitely had a presence.
So
He
you
was
walk
a
in the room and
big
you know it.
man.
Because it don't show as much up here, you know,
No.
because it's headshots and stuff.
Yeah.
He was a big
How old is that picture of him?
This
Was that right before he passed away?
Right, probably right before he
I'm
passed.
gonna run. I need to.
He was 77.
Thank you. See you. Good meeting you.